The ground invasion of Gaza is underway with the IDF uh, pushing into the Gaza Strip in about ways that you might expect. But we'll get to that. But the big take on for everybody from the world is that they want a ceasefire. Everyone wants a ceasefire, and polling data shows that Americans demand a ceasefire in Gaza with Israel or whatever, as if that is our up to us, you know. Like I've said from the beginning, I take a neutral stance here. I mean, just in the fact that I don't think either side has been all that helpful to the United States. Certainly Israel, with everything that they've done, and they've been proven to be duplicitous, and Hamas, for their part, is no friend of the U.S. at all. And but everyone wants a ceasefire, and this is the dumbest thing. Why would there be a ceasefire at this point? Especially, it's such a tone deaf kind of thing where, especially like Israel's calling this like 9/11 times 1,000, or 9/11. They're calling it multiples of 9/11, whatever, you know. However you might take that, you think that they're gonna just want like a ceasefire or something, you know, like why would they? Because civilians are getting killed. This shows just how dumb the attitude of everyone is about war and their expectations of it. Because this is coming from the right and the left. You know, there's everybody everyone is against Israel, more or less, in ways. The establishment obviously is pro-Israel, but every kind of, you know, dissident regime critic or something, you know, they're against Israel, and that's whatever. But to call for a ceasefire, you're just being foolish. You're just a fool. And even if let's say you are just totally anti-Israel and totally pro Hamas, even, or Gaza or Palestine, what's even the point of calling for a ceasefire now, where it's just not going to happen? I guess you could just put the pressure on and discredit everything and discredit the U.S. stance for this, because Biden isn't. There's no real expectation for a ceasefire. It's not what we're pushing for. You know, it doesn't seem like it's going to happen. Because why would the Israelis, for their part, would be very dumb if they did a ceasefire right now, and it would only for what? Just to drag on a war that's already been going on for like 70 years or something. Like, what's the point in dragging this on further? I'm not saying like because some people, oh yeah, let's just let both sides kill each other. That's not my position. I don't want both. I'm not like, yeah, both sides are killing each other. You know, that's not it. But one side is gonna maybe win, and the natural course of things will. And Hamas, for their part, and a lot of these Hamas people think that they can win. They're not calling for a ceasefire. They picked the fight. They provoked the attack, and they seem to. I mean, you would expect Israel to invade after that, where it's a very provocative attack. You're attacking just random people just all over the place. It's clear as however much gaslighting is about this it's a terroristic attack where gunmen, you have your Musalahin just running about, just killing as many civilians as they can, looking for soft targets to take out, and tactically engaging military and police when needed, but mostly just a big meat hunt where you're just trying to stack up as many bodies of however many Israelis as possible. And the express goal seems to be to get Israel to do some kind of heavy-handed response. That would be why you would do this. That goes to, if you actually look into like the playbook of people like Bin Laden and things, that's what he was trying to do. He didn't do 9/11 and then be like, ceasefire. We need, that wouldn't have made a lot of sense. You'd say, well, why would you do that if this isn't exactly what you want? And some people might say, well, why give them exactly what they want? He's trying to get so here's the thing, you just have to do it. I mean, from Israel's standpoint, like if I was Israel, let's say I'm noticing that they kill all these civilians, they've got all these hostages, and they're trying to bait you in. So do you just not get it? No, you still have to do it. Like there isn't that many options, especially with hostages, especially with that many civilian dead, with that kind of provocation. Only kind of like a bitch cowardly regime like Bashar al-Assad gets attacked over and over and then doesn't respond and just like what can I do? Even if you're a more weak country, you're still, I mean, just as a matter of honor and legitimacy for your rule, you need to respond to that. You need to take action. It's just the natural thing. So why not just let the natural course of things go instead of calling for a ceasefire? This is very dumb, and people are complaining about the civilian casualties and things. Well, there isn't that much way around it if you figure how any of this works. Like with Fallujah, the second battle for Phantom Fury, civilians are told to evacuate, and then Marines push in and are told they could shoot anybody who they see. If you see anybody, you feel free to take them out. So everyone in the city died. Like very few. There were some civilians who were left be, but this is a matter of like that's just how soldiers can be sometimes. Sometimes they don't feel like killing someone. Sometimes they may take heart, but typically you're gonna get shot. Like if you escape from, if one squad doesn't shoot you, you might, doesn't mean you're not gonna get shot moving out of the cordon or something, because you're gonna run into probably multiple troops on your way out. There were a few people who escaped, but not a whole lot. Pretty much everyone died. People were told to evacuate. If you didn't, you got killed. Now, more comparable, this Gaza battle is bigger than Fallujah. Like the scale of it and the intensity of it is bigger, and it's more comparable to Raqqa and Mosul. And the U.S. have brought that up because the Secretary of Defense was heading that up with CENTCOM at the time under Obama, and so he's very familiar with those battles. And then we've had people in Israel bringing this up, bringing up lessons learned, like General Glynn, the Marine general, who is probably gone by now, because they said once this kicks off, they're gonna bail. But the U.S. concern was for civilians, even though if you look at those battles like Raqqa and Mosul, where the U.S. basically used proxies, either like the Iraqi army or these Kurdish Maoists, PKK guys, for like a mercenary force, for a ground force, because we're not using our own troops anymore. We haven't used our own infantry in a long time, but backed by air, these guys are able to take these cities, but they pretty much have to bomb out everything. I think the IDF is going to be better, more talented troops than certainly more than the Kurdish Maoists of the PKK, and I'd say better than even the Iraqi Golden Division. I would expect, which are the top notch Iraq troops, which are hitters, which were good. They could fight, but I mean these. Pretty much anybody can take out a city if you have that kind of air power backing you up. And it's just a matter of GPS. You know, we're taking fire from this building, so we're going to need some JDAMs into it. And if we get Apaches overhead, even better. And these are just going to kill everybody. Like, if you could go watch this gun camera footage and figure what your chances of survival are against when you have Apache helicopters. And just circling over the battle space. You just see how that goes, because you don't need to hear them or see them for them to be able to kill you. And you don't really have a lot of anti-air. These guys in Gaza, as far as I know, have very little like surface-to-air missiles or mantas. Just like the guys in Syria had nothing to defend against Assad. It's going to be a similar thing, but the IDF really, they're going to have to push up their trucks. They're going to have to try to not get into lured into kind of kill zones with the anti-tank guided missiles, which are like, those are going to inflict heavy casualties on Israelis and already are. Because I saw there was like a whole squad that got taken out by one hit on their APC. So this is heavy combat that the Israelis are engaged in right now. Because you didn't see all that, like, in Iraq, that didn't happen all that often. My unit, actually, we did get, it was 10, 11 guys were killed in one hit, but that's rare. That was in Fallujah. But that's rare. Okay, and but it looks like just already going in, the Israelis are in the thick of it. I mean, this is a heavier combat than usual. So yeah, they're gonna pretty much be bombing everything, because how else do you really reduce the casualties of your troops is reducing all these buildings and with air power. So you take fire, you call in some fires, either artillery or air strikes, to deal with it. And the more air assets overhead, even better. So they're just going to keep on dropping JDAMs all over the place. And the U.S. is equipping them to do all this. Because the Republicans are making sure that, these Israelis need all these weapons to fight effectively. I think they should. I think they pretty much handled it and will handle it. I don't think Hamas is going to win. And I don't think anyone else really going to step in. Maybe Iran will at some point. We'll see. But they don't really want to. And as far as I'm concerned, I think that Iran would have told Hamas to not conduct that attack. I don't think they encourage this sort of thing, because they don't have any intention of actually putting their money where their mouth is. Every Arab country, this needs to be like reiterated over and over, because people actually have this idea in their head, like there's all these Arab countries that are going to jump in and attack Israel. In fact, none of them can or will or wants to. Not like Blabbermouth Hinkle, who's pretending that Yemen declared war on Israel. This did not happen. And even Iran are not really trying to get involved, because it's going to go very bad for them. They won't be able to effectively back it. But this is probably what the Gazans, what Hamas was thinking. They're going to conduct this attack, and then you're going to have to put your money where your mouth is, or you're going to look like a real fool. But instead, it's just it's just degraded to a very leftist, anti-war. The civilian. This is atrocious. Okay, this is how wars are fought. And like in Mosul, ISIS wouldn't have got displaced without killing pretty much. And Obama told people to not evacuate. So he was more bloodthirsty than George W. Bush. And when you do these big pushes into cities, you're telling the civilians, you get out of there. And we took a lot of efforts with psyops and things like that, even botching our own operations a bit to try to get civilians to kind of get our message communicated to them that we can reduce their casualties. The efforts were made in Iraq, but at the end of the day, it's more important to kill the enemy, because how much do you really care about the enemy civilians is not nearly as much as your own troops. You have more of a responsibility to your own men. So the Israelis have more of a responsibility to their own people and their own soldiers. So like I'm not like, if I was Israel, I mean, I approach this with complete ruthlessness. And if you have all the assets where you need to be, you think you can win this fight, I would try to win this as quickly and ruthlessly as possible, without much regard for the international say of it. You know, because that can get you kind of pumped too. Because it could be fun to be the bad guy, and it could be fun to have everyone hate you, and to be the villain. You know, like, okay, the whole world hate, and for Jewish people, they're just gonna be super pumped about it. Oh yeah, we knew you were all anti-Semitic all along. You know, like, they're gonna kind of revel in this. In my opinion, I don't think they're gonna be that fazed by all the leftist rhetoric. Oh, you know, these are war crimes, and so they're just gonna say you didn't care that much about the October 7th attacks. You thought that was all funny when it was, you know, our people getting killed, and now look at you crying. That's what they're gonna think. Like, if everyone thinks you're the bad guy, you can't just stop caring. You know, when everyone thinks you're the good guy, you have to be nice to everyone. You know, then you have to be diplomatic. Then you have to be, you actually have to, it takes a lot of effort to be the good guy. It takes no effort to be the bad guy. That's when you have fun. And that's where Israel is now. And they're going to just enjoy their role, I think, until they are satisfied, or until they finish this. And their objectives that they spell out: rescue the hostages, get rid of Hamas, secure their borders. This is going to mean taking the whole Gaza Strip. And what we're talking about is a densely populated area. This is denser than Israel because they're all boxed in. If you look at the geography of it, it's right on the border with Egypt, and then it's surrounded by Israel like that, like a L, like a big L-shaped ambush. So you know, that's where you could, you know, it's not the strategically best place to be getting attacked from. Basically, if you just look at it, you'd figure that these people are finished. Hamas seems to think, or they're boasting, that Israel doesn't have it in them to do this. I mean, we'll see, but to me, it looks like the Israelis are going to go in there and they're gonna wipe them out, and you're going to see a lot more of the refugee camps exploding and stuff like that. And because why? I mean, it's a kind of a strange expectation that Israel, like, oh, don't you care about the lives? No, they don't. Like, no, they don't care. In fact, I'm sure they'd rather just kill all these people. I mean, I'm sure for the most part, I think that's what, and they could say otherwise, that they're not really sure, but they know everyone in Gaza hates them. They know they're not going to be welcome. So is this the kind of neighbor that you want to be dealing with or whatever? I think they're going to try to do a very brutal campaign that kills a large number of civilians, and really they're going to try to beat whatever ideology that Hamas have and whatever the people of Gaza have. They're just going to try to beat it out of them. Bomb after bomb. I mean, and you might not like that, but that's probably what they're gonna do, no matter how much you cry about it. And if so I think the ceasefire rhetoric that people are coming up with is not productive. It doesn't seem like they're coordinating messaging with Hamas or something. It's just the kind of emotional leftist kind of libtard rhetoric that you always see. But it's people on the right too, which is really funny, because all the people who are all backing Putin, and they all backed Assad, where they're just like murdering, and they all thought it was so funny that these guys would target infrastructure, target civilians, just massacre people. But now these same people are aghast that I can't believe Israel would do this. I'm not that surprised. I don't spend I'm not gonna cheer on this bloodbath, but it seems just a waste of time to be like calling for a ceasefire or something. I'd just assume let things go the natural course. I think the U.S. I think what Biden is doing is intelligent. They're gonna fight it out, and we can reduce civilian casualties. That's cool. That that is part of the U.S. mission. It is some humanitarian assistance to Gaza, because I don't think you're going to necessarily expect that from Israel, but the U.S. is providing weapons to Israel. That's to be totally expected. That's why I think it's messed up that these Republicans will try to strip the defense of Ukraine and give it to Israel. I think that's messed up. But I'm not going to waste my time shouting that I think it's bad to give the weapons to Israel, or that I don't think they need them. It's like, I know that they're going to give them. I know it's going to happen. They're going to give Israel all the weapons. That they're going to give Israel all the money. It's just going to happen. That's just, I can only frustrate myself so much, even speaking about these things. But I just think it's kind of a sad joke how this is the military attitude that so many people have, even on the right wing. And people say, there's however many, the dissident right guys who will be like, that's a war crime. I don't care who shut up. You can't drop a bomb on a refugee camp. I don't care who you are. Even if why don't, I've seen however many accounts, is there nothing that the pro-Israeli partisans will call out, will say that that's too much when their side does, this is called fighting a war, guys. And yeah, like, I'd be concerned if, let's say we were fighting like a war in the future against like Mexico or something. Like Mexico has like this crazy government and they're trying to get like all their land back or something from whatever. like in the future, Mexico is like this thing, and we're at war with them, and we're pushing on like, so I wouldn't really appreciate people just calling for a ceasefire all the time. Even, but it's also to protect the lives of our troops. You don't really always appreciate that. And then anytime you drop a bomb on like a built up area, people are going to complain about it. That's just really dumb. There's no real way, like I say, like in Mosul, there was no way to dislodge ISIS or Raqqa without just bombing the. You could have evacuated these cities, but Obama didn't even. He just said pretty much, just tell us where to drop the bomb and we'll drop it. And one way or another, these cities will be cleared out. That's what they did. They massacred tens of thousands of civilians, and it's all to be expected. But that's how you do it. It's hypocritical. And the U.S. did all that. I think maybe there'd be other ways to do it, but that was a real bloodbath, and very few people really cared. Now everyone cares because the Jews are involved, and people are just fascinated by all things Jewish, one way or another. Like, people just find Jews to be really interesting and get super passionate one way or another, even whether they're pro or against or what. They just get really into this stuff, where other things, other wars, they lose their interest if there's no Jewish angle, if there's no, or they'll try to invent a Jewish angle to it. But people are really into it now, and it's become the big thing. The ceasefire. What would come out of that? Like, it's the same thing in Ukraine, where Zelensky's very smart to not be buying into the stuff, these ceasefires. As Zelensky said, he says, if we freeze the war, he said, to me, that means we losing it. It means we lose it. That's correct. Freezing a war is a kind of losing a war. You know, like look at North Korea, where we have a war frozen forever or whatever. Like, you know, that you can't call that a big win. Why drag this stuff out? It used to be that wars just took their natural course. You know, sometimes you lose a hipload of territory and people are ethnic cleansed, and maybe that's your people, or maybe it's someone else. But that's what war is deciding. Whose people are gonna live in this land? Who is gonna benefit from it? Whose descendants are gonna inherit this and fill this? You know, who will it be? Will it be my people or your people? That's what the Israel-Palestine is about. And for them, it's not a big religious thing. It's more of a race war. It's more of a traditional war. It's not. In the U.S., this was obscured by the hillbilly Christian Zionists and things like that. But you only need to really engage this stuff for so much before it's very boring. Like, I don't need to be told this all the time. Oh, actually, maybe we're not gonna get blessed by God from blessing Israel. Yeah, you think? I mean, like, shut up. I shouldn't even say it, but it gets real old real quick. You just want to move on to other topics and maybe discuss things a little more on a more elevated. Just elevate the dialogue a little bit. It's impossible in the U.S. where it's just always a matter of gaslighting and obfuscating and things. But I think what we're gonna have. I mean, to me, it looks like Israel's gonna push through. They're gonna inflict heavy civilian casualties, and there isn't much way around it. And because you're just gonna think that they're just gonna like move in like police wherever they find like a Hamas commander and do everything that they can to make sure that no civilians are, even though these are the civilians that hate you and that want you to die and provide all that. That's what you think. I know how this is. Like, you think the first time I was in Iraq, that's how we thought about civilians. These are the people who are otherwise aiding the enemy. If they're not the enemy themselves, they're basically they basically are. So if some of them are killed, they're the enemy's civilians. Why should we care? It's the enemy's responsibility to care about these people. Why? For us, it just means a few less or whatever. It hurts their economy or something, or it's bad. It's morally bad or something. Well, it just happens. And I won't even say it's people getting caught in the crossfire. Most in my experience, most civilians who are killed in the crossfire, someone took aim at. And I mean, like, I know this for a fact. At least in my experience, because people will come up with this after. Hey, who did some? Or who shot the? Usually, or like animals or something. Usually, people, yeah, actually. So it's not just you're doing suppressing fire and someone takes it astray. Usually most civilians who are killed like that, and except for like artillery strikes or something that's over the horizon, blows up whole buildings or something. But a lot of people killed in combat, like with small arms fire, it's not just caught in the crossfire, because most people don't hang out in crossfires. Usually it's troops will, in a situation like they'll just start shooting everybody who they see. If they're not your civilians, if you're not the home team, obviously if you're playing like, Ukraine can't really do that until they are really in the heavy separatist areas, then maybe they will. But until then, but the second time I was in Iraq, actually it was a lot different, because people were sympathetic to us. People actually were trying to get onto our team. Then you look at them a little bit differently. Then you actually, that's when you take more strides to not piss off the locals and stuff. Like I said, it's harder to be the good guy, because in 2007 when I was there in Iraq, you had to be the good guy kind of, because everyone was like looking to you, and they're stoked if Marines show up. This is in Al Anbar province, but the first time I was there, you didn't look at people like that. If some civilians get hit, nobody cared. I for one cared very little, and let me say this too though, like, it's a matter, like, troops. Most of your real hitters, your infantry troops, are very young, and so it's like your teenagers and stuff. In my squad, we had a guy that was 27 years old, and we called him Father Time and Old Man River, and we couldn't get over how old he was. Why are you here? Everyone else here is 19 years old, 20 years old, 21, 22. Beyond 22 is it seems strange. Now, to me, a 27 is like a same thing as a 22-year-old. I mean, I'm not that old, but just looking back, I'm like, that guy wasn't that old. But it seems so old to us. But when you're dealing with these kind of troops, you don't know. They could be very unpredictable. So even people would bring up certain videos with Hamas. Oh, look. These Hamas guys were very friendly with these civilians who they came across, with certain civilians, certain children, certain old people. They didn't just murder these people. They spared their lives or whatever. Even though I think in most cases it seems like Hamas was just trying to gun down everybody who they can, but in certain situations they didn't. That's totally natural for any kind of troops, because it's almost random. And if you're in a situation where, say, you have like an enemy army bearing down on you, you might want to keep that in mind, because these are like kids, and they might take heart to you, and they might like you, and they might cozy up to you and eat a meal with you or something. Like this stuff happens, and they might think your children or they might show great kindness to your kids, or they might show kindness to just normal, people. It's going to catch them in the mood. They might also just murder you all for fun. It's just as and that's probably more likely to happen. But you will get times where, it's like this in any war. That's just what you're dealing with. You're dealing with like kids who are heavily armed and all that. You don't know how it's going to go. And I'm sure it's going to be the same thing with the Israelis pushing in. For the most part, I think they're going to approach everything with complete ruthlessness. And they're going to look at a building that they're taking fire from, and they're not going to give it two thoughts of if civilians are in there. We told everyone to go. We told civilians to evacuate. So tough titty if you're still there. We don't care, and we'll probably just laugh at you. And that's probably the case. The troops are probably going to laugh at you. It's the same thing on the other side. The Hamas didn't show. I mean, they were happy to attack civilians. I mean, there's people who seem to be not clear about the nature of that attack. I do think it's kind of surprising how little Israel got sympathy for that attack. I think because immediately Israel was attacked and people were protesting for Palestine and all that. They don't seem to be. I thought it was kind of surprising. I like just the nature of it. I'm like, you'd think that. It's whatever to me. To me, it only shows because it is kind of ironic in different ways that these are, because a lot of the people who are the most anti-Israel, the most anti-Semitic, the most are these immigrants who've been brought in to the West, and so there's a certain amount of irony that's just it's not lost on anybody. But nevertheless, certain things like this are why I keep a neutral standpoint. Otherwise, because I think it's horrific what happened to Israel. I'm not shocked and appalled by the behavior of the Israeli military or something. I'm not at all. I mean, like, I just don't think that they're like our greatest allies or something. That's really it. And I don't have anything like I don't like hate Hamas. I mean, I think Hamas are probably like evil people. They're definitely a terrorist group, but I don't like hate like Palestinians or something. Like, I don't have it out for them but Israelis probably do. Like, so it's not up to me. I'm not going to waste my time shouting about a ceasefire. That's just dumb. So I think what could be expected is Israel's going to push all the way in and they're just going to blow everything up. They're going to blow everything to smithereens. And who knows, maybe even the hostages are not even all alive. Maybe they're all dead already. I haven't seen that much proof of life, and it could be that something of a ruse to you don't know. They took these hostages to have certain cards left that they could hold close to them. It makes it a stickier situation for these airstrikes to blow everything up. But in the end, they're they have their own considerations. I don't necessarily know how they're gonna pull this off, but I do know that any good military would push into this area as fast and ruthlessly as they can, and you just take over the whole Gaza Strip. And anyone who gets in the way, from Israel's point of view, like for the U.S. to kill Iraqi civilians meant it wasn't like a good thing that because it wasn't like we're trying to reduce this population or something. There was no thought to that. But the Israelis might look at that because the Israelis have to think. What the reason they don't want a one-state solution, This is the reason why they can't just normalize this like say they might everywhere else, and why Israel is a hypocritical state. Because when people defend Israel who otherwise have all these liberal platitudes about equal rights for everyone, well, they're not doing that in Israel. Because yeah, it's true that Palestinians are under their control, but the Israelis are not. They're not trying to give them equal status. They might want maybe some kind of two-state thing, but if they just made a one-state solution, that's it for them. That's a lot of people. Their peace proposal is a one-state solution because the Palestinians are gonna outnumber them very quickly and are gonna. The Israelis don't really know how that'll work out if that happened. So they might just take the opportunity to reduce Palestinian numbers. And then maybe in the future, they'll say, okay, let's do a one state, after they've killed like 90% or something of the Palestinians or something. They'll be like, sure, we'll do a one state solution or something. They might, after their numbers seem like they could be doable in a way. But first, they've got to inflict. I mean, this is how they might be looking at it. Because for them, they might be like I've seen Hamas say that actually Israel is obliged to care about the civilians because they're in their territory. They need to care. Frankly, Hamas should be caring about their own civilians because the Israelis probably see it as a bonus if they kill the Hamas commander and then 200 civilians die in the same explosion. They probably don't even see that as like a bad thing. They're probably like, well, you hit 200 birds with one stone is how they might just view it. So all the blabber about the ceasefire and stuff and all this kind of blabber rhetoric, it's really embarrassing, especially when these kind of right-wing people will say, because they're gonna trash our own military with the same kind of rhetoric. Not like, and even if we had like a righteous government and we had a military that's doing all the right things, all the things that we want them to do, what, we're gonna condition our people to think it's bad? Because that's what they'll think. This propaganda, it doesn't just wear off. Like in World War II, the French and the British, they put out all their propaganda that said, these kind of imperial wars are wrong. It's bad to take over like another country, and then it's you have to liberate these countries so everyone can be free or something. That made sense to them in the context of World War II, but after the war was over, all their people had already digested all this propaganda. That's what they thought. So how are they looking at their own selves after that? How are they looking at their own empire? It became impossible for them to maintain these empires like honestly, because of their own propaganda rhetoric that they brainwashed their own people with. Nobody was all for it. So this rhetoric is being ignored and totally rebuffed by Israel. And if anything, it's probably making Israel pump. Because, like, during Iraq, we didn't really care if, like, Ministry or Green Day was, like, writing songs about, like, ripping on President Bush or saying like, America's an evil country for, like, invading for oil or something. Like, we even though Americans there's all this rhetoric about George Bush as a Nazi and stuff, like, we just thought that was funny. Like, in the military, you just thought it was funny. Like, okay, that's what people think about this back home. Whatever. Because it's kind of fun. It makes it more fun if someone thinks you're like the villain. It made Because it's like to be like Operation Iraqi Freedom. Oh, we're the good guy. That makes for a good country song, but for a lot of people, they don't care. It actually made it more fun as public opinion started to turn against the war. Because then it was like, you know what? Screw you. We're still gonna invade countries and do whatever. There's nothing you could do to stop it. It just made it more fun. So all the crybaby rhetoric isn't gonna. I don't think it's gonna make the Israelis feel bad and mean about themselves or whatever. That's probably gonna be. They're just gonna. For them certainly, because they're indoctrinated into the whole world is anti-Semitic. They're probably just gonna fight even harder. They're gonna think, well, hey, if we don't fight this battle, they're gonna just Holocaust us, or it's gonna be, we're going back to the gas chambers, or because that's what they're gonna say. You got to keep your ear to the railroad tracks, or so on and so forth. And I think a lot of people are wasting their breath and making this totally stupid. Like, we could be talking about like the tactics involved in this or something, but it gets hard to find that stuff, even with however much just crybaby rhetoric is based on this. As it is, yeah, it's a big L shape, and they're gonna come. They're encroaching from multiple directions, and it looks like real soon they're gonna cut the top part in half, and the southern part where they told everyone to withdraw is gonna remain, but then they're probably gonna push through that too if they don't get all the hostages, and if Hamas still remains, they're just gonna do. There might be some kind of operational pause, and then they're gonna probably try to carry this out to a conclusion. Because if it's the 9/11 times 1,000, because if it's for Israeli lives or whatever, however they calculate this stuff, but that's what they're calling this. It's multiples of 9/11. And just figure for the U.S. The Iraq War was very popular because after 9/11 times 1, it wasn't satisfying enough to just topple Afghanistan, and that wasn't a proper revenge. More people needed to pay, which is correct, which was correct. More people did need to pay. So I don't know. I don't look at war like from this objective. People are like, look at this from like this godlike view of like both sides have to be doing the right thing. We're gonna see who's in the right. Which one side will prove to be the good guy and the other side will be bad. And we'll look at this from the God's point of view. Or you know what? It's not really the case. For the most part, war, you figure out it's a matter of which side you're on, and then if you're a religious person like myself, you'll want to try to figure out if it's a just war. If your war is just. Like in Ukraine, we have a clearly just war, and that's a war that I'm not neutral on at all. But if you're a Russian, for the most part, I think people should back Ukraine. But obviously, if you're like a Russian or something, maybe you back your own, your country or whatever. I don't think I'm not like saying that justifies you or whatever. You're the enemy. But I understand. I'm not gonna quibble with it or something, or waste my time on it. You got your side, we've got ours. So there's no objective body between all this stuff. In between countries, there's anarchy. There's no such thing as international law. It's an illusion that's used as a tool to control other countries, but it doesn't really exist. Between sovereign states, it's only anarchy. There's nothing that governs between. So, I mean, I'm not saying it, if somebody backs the side on this, I think that's totally fine. Either side's fine. I don't recommend backing Hamas because it's a terrorist group, and you're just asking for legal trouble and whatever else that goes with it. And for the record, I don't think that Hamas is like, yeah, I understand why they're terrorists and all that, but I don't think these are like great guys or something. I don't think Islam is cool, and I don't think that allying with Iran is ever very smart. Because look at what Iran is doing for them. Iran's used them for however long. They use them as their big thing. The Iranian identity is largely an abuse of Palestine, the Palestinian cause, and all this stuff. And that's firmly in their ideology. But they don't. You see how committed they are to really getting into this thing. Maybe I'll be proven wrong when they launch some all-out invasion or something. I think we'll probably see more Iranian proxies get involved, and maybe to the point where the U.S. decides to hit them in the nose. But it doesn't seem like either side wants to engage. So far, both sides only do token strikes, and despite everyone's rhetoric, the Iranians can blow apart every U.S. base. The Iranians have done stupid little drone attacks that have only injured like a few U.S. troops, and then the U.S. responded by blowing up some Iranian IRGC bases or something. These are called token strikes, and this is evidence that neither party is really trying to get involved. The U.S. is not warmongering here. There's no real honest way to say it. Even though you might want to criticize Brandon and you might hate Brandon and all that, but there isn't really a lot of the U.S. What's going on, just positioning our ships in the region, discourage anyone else from jumping in. We do advocate for the Palestinians. We do advocate for Gaza. And also we're arming Israel. I don't think that's the best thing. I think these weapons should go to Ukraine instead, because I think the Israelis can do this already. I think they've got it. I think they can pull this off as it is. And it could be good. But in general, there's nothing really crazy that you could say, oh, Brandon's really botching this thing and the U.S. is warmongering and trying to start World War III. I don't know. I'd just as soon shut people down when they go on with stuff like this. But anyway, I don't expect there to be a ceasefire. I think if both sides are intelligent, maybe Hamas, I think, will probably, they'd probably appreciate a ceasefire to regroup, to get their defenses back. But it doesn't look like I don't think they're gonna get what they want, because they're not drawing Iran in. They're not, I think they thought they were gonna draw in a more regional thing, but you see the commitment that these people really have towards them. No one's probably jumping in. It doesn't look like anyone wants to jump in. I could be proven wrong, but we'll see. That's what the war will show us. But as for now, there ain't gonna be. I think it would be very dumb. Like, I'm not giving Israelis advice or something, but just seeing it from their point of view. Like that, I would find it, if I was commanding the Israeli war effort, I would find it indefensible to do a ceasefire. Like, I haven't seen it completely absurd. So let's see where we go from here.